In 1993, a breakthrough shook the world: CRISPR, a game-changing technology that promised to cure the incurable by editing genes. But just over 2 decades later, the US government made a shocking move, banning CRISPR, branding it a weapon of mass destruction, a power too dangerous to control. Now, in the year 2032, the unthinkable has happened. Athena 1, the once pristine space station, lies in ruins. The entire crew is dead, except for Carrie. Desperate and alone, she pleads for rescue from the control room. But her boss's chilling demand is clear: retrieve the mutagen samples, or the escape capsule door stays locked. Will she survive the impossible choice? Desperate to survive, Carrie navigates the wreckage and secures all 3 samples, but she is spotted by the enemy. A failed experiment has created a monstrous mutated rat, which now chases after her. Carrie sprints through the debris and flames, narrowly making it into the escape capsule before the rat catches her. As she escapes, she watches the station explode. However, the rat's rampage damaged the capsule, causing it to explode as well, killing Carrie as the pieces fall to Earth. Later, at the San Diego Wildlife Sanctuary, primatologist Davis introduces his friend Nelson and 2 new employees to the gorilla enclosure. Pavo, the newest member, acts aggressively and bothers the female gorillas. Davis calms him down using sign language. Then Davis's best friend George, another male gorilla, appears. Pavo becomes aggressive again, and one of the employees panics and tries to run. Pavo chases and pushes him to the ground, but George steps in and scares Pavo away before anything serious happens. After it's over, George and Davis joke around using sign language.
Oh, very funny. It's very funny. We're all very impressed.
Davis reminds George that Pavo is now family and must be protected. When Davis asks for a fist bump, George flips him off before finally complying. Later, an employee tries to ask Davis out, but he turns her down, and Nelson teases him for liking animals more than people. That evening, the 3 mutagen canisters Carrie retrieved arrive on Earth. One lands in the sanctuary, releasing its contents onto George. Another lands in the forest and is found by a wolf, while the third falls into a river and is swallowed by a crocodile. The next day, Davis arrives at the sanctuary and hears bad news from Nelson. George is behaving aggressively. He broke into the grisly enclosure and killed a bear. When Davis checks on him, he finds George wounded from the fight. George looks sad, admits he made a mistake, and apologizes. The biggest shock, however, is that George has grown significantly larger. Davis's team investigates the area and finds the canister. Davis decides to keep it for research. While studying George's blood work, Davis discovers a deadly concentration of growth hormone that should have killed him instantly. Nelson suggests putting George down, but Davis refuses until they learn more.
What is it?
I don't know. We gotta figure it out.
Energine is the company responsible for the mutagen research. Brett is furious about the money they've lost after the station exploded, but Claire is pleased. The mutated rat confirms the success of Project Rampage. She remains hopeful for progress after a Meteor Society report reveals the location of one of the re-entry-proof containers. Claire hires Burke and his private military team to retrieve it. Burke's team finds the damaged, empty canister in the forest, along with the bodies of dead wolves. They report this to Claire, who realizes a wolf is mutating. She orders Burke to capture it. Meanwhile, in the city, Kate watches the news about the Athena 1 disaster and George's attack on a bear. As a former Energine scientist, she pieces everything together and hurries to the sanctuary. At the sanctuary, Kate tells Davis that the canister he found contains a sample she created. Davis is skeptical, but Kate proves her credibility by describing George's symptoms and explaining that she is the only one who can help him. The mutagen is altering George's DNA by combining it with other animals, making him grow rapidly and act more aggressively. Suddenly, George becomes enraged, breaks his cage, and escapes. He storms through the sanctuary, spreading chaos among the guests and smashing cars with his fists. The police arrive immediately, ready to shoot him, but Davis steps in and calms George down using sign language. The cops lower their guns, but a sniper in a helicopter ignores the order and shoots George with tranquilizer darts. Meanwhile, in the forest, Burke and his team spot Ralph, the mutated wolf, and shoot him from their helicopter. They land to find the body, but discover it's missing. Instead, they see a massive paw print on the ground, which frightens some soldiers. Moments later, Ralph ambushes them and starts killing the soldiers one by one. The soldiers fight back with their weapons, and the helicopter uses its machine gun, but Ralph's thickened skin makes the bullets useless. Now enormous, Ralph leaps high into the air, attacking and destroying the helicopter. On the ground, Burke survives the attack and tries to fight Ralph again, but the wolf quickly devours him. By evening, Agent Russell of the FBI arrests Davis and Kate for conducting illegal experiments on George, who is taken away in a government plane with them. Inside the plane, Davis notices George's wounds are already healing. Russell then interrogates Davis, mocking him for leaving the army to care for animals and dismissing their warnings about the danger of keeping George on the plane. Kate was fired from Energyne 2 years ago after she tried to steal the company's research. As a result, she spent 13 months in prison. She admits she can't actually cure George, which makes Davis lose trust in her. At Energyne, Claire finds out Kate was arrested, and Brett suspects she's gathering evidence to take down the company. He sees her as a threat. Claire, however, has a cure for the mutagen and devises a plan. She decides to lure all the mutated animals to her building using low-frequency radio waves, where the military will kill them. Claire plans to collect their DNA and sell it later. Confident George will kill everyone on the plane, she dismisses Kate as a problem. When Claire activates the device, Ralph immediately stops rampaging and heads toward the city. Lizzie, the mutated crocodile, senses the signal and follows. Meanwhile, on the plane, George, who is supposed to be sedated, wakes up furious because of Claire's trick. He destroys his cage and wreaks havoc, throwing people around effortlessly. The guards shoot at George, but the bullets have no effect. When Russell tries to stop him, George quickly pins him under his foot. Davis attempts to calm George, but another soldier opens fire, enraging him further. A stray bullet hits a box of explosives, causing it to blow up and destroy the plane's turbine, sending it into a nosedive. George is pushed against the wall by a cart, while Davis rushes to put parachutes on himself, Kate, and Russell. They jump off the plane just before it crashes with George still inside. When they land and check the crash site, they don't find George's body. However, they spot a trail on the grass, showing that George survived and is heading to the city. At Energyne, Claire becomes furious when she hears that Kate survived the plane crash. When the FBI arrives to confiscate the company's research and records, Claire tries to save herself by blaming Kate for the chaos caused by the beasts. Meanwhile, Davis tries to leave Kate behind, feeling disillusioned with humanity after seeing so much cruelty during the war. He recalls rescuing George as a baby, hiding under a car while people butchered his mother. But Davis changes his mind when Kate shares her story. She created CRISPR to cure her brother's deadly illness, but when the company tried to weaponize the mutagen, she attempted to destroy it and ended up in prison. Her brother died while she was locked up. Russell, who now trusts them because they saved his life, contacts his team for rescue. The group is taken to an Air Force base, where Colonel Blake shows them footage of George and Ralph running toward the city. Davis points out that it's impossible for a gorilla and a wolf to travel in a straight line to the same destination unless they are being called by something. Kate suspects Claire is waiting with an antidote. Russell supports their theory, but Blake refuses to involve civilians and sends them away. Outside, Davis tries to convince the soldiers to let them go. When that fails, he starts a fight and quickly knocks both guards out. They try to steal a helicopter, and Russell catches them. Instead of stopping them, he gives them the keys and a phone to stay in contact. Meanwhile, Blake's team attacks the beasts, but their weapons, including massive explosions, fail. The entire army is wiped out. Blake decides to evacuate the city before the beasts arrive. Russell informs Davis, who doubts they can evacuate everyone in time. When George and Ralph reach the city, they immediately begin destroying everything. They topple buildings, wreck vehicles, and attack any nearby helicopters. The military confronts them with tanks and heavy weaponry, but nothing works, and the beasts continue their rampage. Soon, Lizzie arrives through the river, joining the destruction. Lizzie uses its massive jaws to crush tanks and jets in its way. Desperate, Blake orders his team to prepare a bomb that will destroy half the city. Russell tries to stop him, explaining that Davis and Kate are retrieving the antidote. Blake doesn't believe him, especially after they stole his helicopter, and he kicks Russell out. Russell receives evidence implicating the company and calls for transport to make some arrests. As the jet carrying the bomb takes off, Davis and Kate reach Energyne and steal 3 antidote vials. Claire spots them on security cameras and confronts them. She explains that the antidote stops aggression, but doesn't reduce the beast's size. Claire takes the vials from Kate and shoots Davis, leaving him unconscious on the ground. Claire takes Kate hostage and drags her to the roof. Before they can escape in a helicopter, George climbs to the top of the building and breaks the helicopter's tail. The damage nearly kills Kate, but Davis arrives just in time and saves her, explaining that the bullet didn't hit any vital organs. While George destroys the antenna, sending the signal, Kate reveals she managed to save 1 vial of the antidote, which could still save George. When Claire tries to attack them again, Kate puts the antidote in Claire's bag and punches her. Davis calls George, who grabs Claire and eats her, ingesting the antidote in the process. Meanwhile, Brett tries to escape through the stairs, carrying the last computer and a lab rat to restart his business later. On the ground floor, he runs into Russell, who lets him go in exchange for the stolen items. However, as Brett steps outside, falling debris crushes him. Outside, Lizzie and Ralph continue destroying the building while George begins calming down, thanks to the antidote. Davis and Kate escape in the broken helicopter just before the building collapses. The crash leaves them shaken but alive. Davis notices civilians nearby and realizes George is feeling better. With Lizzie and Ralph now fighting each other, Davis tells Kate to find Russell while he arms himself to help George in the fight. The beasts battle viciously, rolling and striking each other. In the end, Lizzie kills Ralph by biting his neck. George faces off against Lizzie, but George struggles to gain the upper hand. Davis throws a belt of grenades at Lizzie's back, but Lizzie has grown too powerful, and the grenades barely hurt her. She quickly recovers and hurls George into a building, driving a steel bar through his chest. As Lizzie moves closer to finish him, Davis grabs weapons from the helicopter and distracts her. Lizzie takes the bait and chases after Davis, almost killing him. Meanwhile, George pulls the steel bar from his chest, leaps into the air, and stabs Lizzie in the eye, finally defeating her. Kate informs Russell about the antidote, who passes the message to Blake. Seeing the destruction on the screens, Blake aborts the airstrike mission, realizing George is on their side. George collapses after the fight, leaving Davis grieving for his best friend. Just as Davis starts to leave, he notices George twitching and realizes the gorilla is playing a prank. George flips him off before they share a fist bump. With the battle over, Davis begins his next mission, finding a safe place for George to live. And that's how the movie ends. What did you think of this movie? Let us know in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and press the bell icon for more amazing videos. See you next time.